Welcome to Reading the Green, a golf and fantasy sports show. My name is Mike with Kyle on Tuesday, October 8th. This is episode 125, the Black Desert preview, Sanderson Farms recap. And Kyle, how you doing tonight? I got something for you right off the bat, but how you doing?
Well, what do you got for me right off the jump, Mike? I'm ready.
Well, I mean, I just kind of want to get into it. Like last week, we were recapping the RTG Invitational, and listening back to the episode, I had a lot of fun. It was a great event. I love just replaying hole by hole, but you're rolling right into the second of like basically you're on fall tour when it comes to local events. Why don't you fill me in on what's going on with what you got this week?
Yeah. So I basically, well, this year we had a little bit more golf action with the trip, obviously, but I have two big events of the year. Obviously, the RTG, but then this Friday I have Friday off, which just makes it a 3-day weekend to begin with. It's awesome. But I have the Bro Cup, so we are playing with my brother and my two brother-in-laws, going 36 in one day, playing in my brother's course in the morning, and then my brother-in-law's course in the afternoon. We'll mix some various games in. Play straight up with handicaps as well, but then similar to RTG, but 36 in one day, fall golf. It's awesome.
With the stretch of weather that we have right now, you can't get enough of it. It's so good. I actually think Friday is supposed to be the weakest of the days, and it's like cloudy and a high of 70.
Yeah, it's been trending down all week, but I think I'll take a high of 70 over earlier this week. It was showing like 85 on Friday. No, thank you. It's October. Don't need that.
Well, I'm jealous. So, how long has this event been going on for?
This is our second year. My brother's a newer member to the area up here, right? Yeah, he hasn't been up here as long as the rest of us, and was able to get in a very nice course. There's a tour player out there that also is a member of the same course that we like to talk about from time to time. And then brother-in-law it's a really solid track too. There is some nuanced differences to them. I would say the first track, it's pretty tight off the tee, double OB on both of it. So gotta be loose in the morning, where you can spray it a little bit more in the afternoon. But there's also just more, I guess, not OB treble. So it'll be fun.
Do you have a preference? Where do you think your game suits? What suits better, the morning course or the afternoon course?
I've always played better at the morning course, but I think that's just happenstance. Hopefully this year, the driver's been pretty solid most of the year, so hopefully that continues, and then it's just whether my irons show up or not, and then can have a good outing. I will say too, where we're playing in the morning, just the green speeds seem to be at just a little bit. I mean, they're quick, but I don't have to think about speed as much when I putt there. I would say where we played RTG it's kind of similar. It's just kind of a naturally solid speed for me where I don't have to focus on hitting it harder. Yeah.
So you texted me a fairly long text sometime this week after the RTG.
Yep.
And it was a swing breakdown. You were kind of working through some things in the backyard and had some hypotheses and just said, "Hey, coach, am I on the right track?" And then I sent you back a number of other thoughts on the topic.
Yes.
Back in May, you attempted to take a few golf lessons leading up to our trip to Pinehurst, and it sent you on a tailspin.
Yep.
Do you feel like you are risking the same outcome opening the box here, opening the lid on your golf swing mechanics 3 days before the Bro Cup?
Hopefully not.
What's different this time around?
Yeah, hopefully not. I'll report back, but I feel like, especially when I tried to go down that path back in April is when I started that. He was just trying to change so much that it was just a lot to take in. Where I feel like it did help me have a better understanding of the general mechanics and where where I need to eventually work on. I'm not trying to address all those things. I'm
Mhm.
letting most of it lie, including the extra long backswing. That is the symptom of a lot of my issues. But I got to a point this summer when I was hitting my irons pretty well, granted only for like a 3-4 round stretch in a row, and then at RTG they completely just disappeared from me. So I was trying to hypothesize what might have been the difference there. And I think what we've talked through makes a lot of sense. So I'm just going to focus on that, right? I think I was just getting I was interrupting the turn a little and not getting the right hit back far enough.
I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see what happens. Good luck on Friday.
Thanks. Thanks. Regardless of what happens, 36, beautiful weather,
Yeah,
should be a great day.
I'm
Yeah.
jealous. I'm jealous. I do have an update for you on the personal golf front as well. It's not as exciting as playing 36 on Friday, but maybe I might be able to play 3 to 6 on Friday. We'll see. Maybe Friday evening, because maybe the listeners know this or don't know this, but I've actually been on a wait list at a country club for the last 4 golf seasons. And this was very unexpected coming out of COVID when my wife and I joined at this country club near our house. We did not expect to wait 4 years, but here we are, the end of the 2024 golf season. Got the email this week that a spot has opened up in the club for us.
So is there any other hurdles or is it just writing a check? Is that the last thing and then you're
It,
scot free?
it's funny because I think they have a number of processes in place that assume people are walking off the street and joining the golf club, and that they're not used to having these long wait lists. And so, yes, I actually don't even need to pay the money yet. The money's due next month. Um, but they have sort of a boilerplate email that they write out to say like, hey, here's the steps to becoming a golf member. And it has like an orientation and a tour of the clubhouse. And I'm like, I've been on the wait list for 4 years. I've had playing privileges at a reduced capacity. Like, I know my way around the golf course. I pretty much know everything, but of course I will do it. But can you just like change my status
Yeah.
in the member system so I can make a tee time? And they're like, yes, no problem. So no, it's done. Yeah, I'm in. And as soon as I want to, my wife asked me on Monday afternoon, she's like, I'm surprised that you haven't already gone over there to hit balls. And I said, well, there's a couple things standing in my way from doing that. The first is the course isn't open on Monday. That's the first one. The second one is I really need to mow the lawn. But I undoubtedly, since I live about 30 seconds from the driving range, I will probably be there a lot in the
The
coming years.
You already passed orientation step one there. You knew the course was not open on Monday. Yeah.
You're right. I didn't just show up. So yeah, it's very exciting. It means probably some changes next year in terms of availability, with they got to do league and we're going to have events and all that. So I guess we'll burn that bridge when we get there, but I'm very excited to be a full-time golf member.
Awesome. Congratulations. I'm excited as well.
Well, it should come with some perks to friends of the pod and co-hosts and all that, because now I can actually make advanced tea times and it's easier to get guests out.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I just need to get that game in a great place this winter. I'll be grinding away and let's go.
Well, we didn't share. Actually, last week you did share your beer. I do have a couple in front of me. You got a drink tonight before we talk about some professional golf?
Well, so we haven't talked about the last couple weeks. I have a tea and a water.
Yeah, it's
So
not
no
January
beer.
yet.
Well, no, it's just I was like, well, I was on the fence, decided not to. I'm like, yeah, we haven't talked about the last couple of weeks anyway. So sorry to leave you hanging. We
That's
didn't
all right.
coordinate well enough.
Voyageur Brewing,
Hmm.
Grand Marais, Minnesota. You been there?
I have this summer.
Family and I also went up to Lake Superior, North Shore, Lutz in Minnesota and stayed in a cabin this weekend, which there was plenty of room for your family, turns out. Would have been, we'll have to do this at some point because it actually was a really fun trip. But yeah, swung through Grand Marais and had a Sven and Ole's pizza, throwing rocks into the bay there, and grabbed a 6-pack from Voyageur, which is all things considered, they're not the beer's not going to blow your mind, but to have a really solid brewery in Grand Marais that has tons that you can just pick up and walk out with and walk across the street to the lake, like I've always been impressed the few times I've been up there. So even picked up a t-shirt.
I the wife might have a sweatshirt from when we were there.
uh, the other thing I want to say on the beer front is that yesterday evening, and I took this inspiration from you. I responded in a second. My wife says, "Hey, would you be interested in hosting a guys event as part of a fundraiser for the school gala coming up? And like, what ideas would you have?" And in an instant, I said, "Oh, someone's got drink my cellar, whatever you want to call it, drink my cellar." And so, taking some inspiration from you in the upcoming cellar night that you're organizing, not weird beer night, but a cellar night. I'm gonna try to put together a similar event for people to buy tickets on through the auction and just basically run through my cellar because it's getting kind of out of control, and I'm sure it will get out of control with all the barrel aged beers coming up this fall. I gotta get the only thing you can do is invite people over to share it. Otherwise, I'm never gonna open these bottles.
Exactly. That is 100% the reason behind me starting that as well. Looking to clear some space.
All right, well, fill me in. How much of the Sanderson Farms championship did you watch?
Very little overall. It was a kind of a busier weekend on our end, so there's a little bit on Saturday. I think I had it on getting ready in the morning Friday maybe, but that was about it. I was frustrated though because I thought I was in a pretty good spot, even post cut with some of the lineups, Mike, and things just didn't quite pull through.
Well, we get a first time, and I love this time of year because you can get some good stories, and you ended up with a handful of guys near the top that had would have been fun stories to see. You saw Bo Hostler looking for his first win. He's obviously been around leaderboards the last handful of years. Keith Mitchell hasn't won in forever, and we've talked about Keith a lot on this pod. And then all of a sudden, I'm checking headlines, and Kevin Yu wins this golf tournament. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure where he came from. Stat profile feels great for winning and at the Country Club of Jackson, but Kevin Yu out of nowhere.
I jumped on a lot of your takes last week though from Killer Keith, and hey, let's now would be the time he was going to win, and I thought on Saturday he was going to get it done, but our boy Keith, he's not the killer.
He really isn't. I mean, he ends up shooting 70 on Sunday, but this was a gettable golf course. And at one point, I think he was even one or two over par on the front nine. And it was just, okay, Keith, you put yourself in these positions and you can't be that killer. But Kevin Yu gets it done, ends up in a playoff, ends up a really odd. I didn't go back and watch this, but how close are you to the situation with Bo Hostler on 18 in regulation?
I just saw the takes that hey, like everyone was kind of cheering against him for asking for the TIO.
Well, I mean, I did read a few breakdowns. I didn't go back and watch it, but essentially, he would have had to hit an impossible shot. He's basically behind a tree, right? He hooks his drive left on 18. He has to make par in order to force a playoff with Kevin Yu, who's just made birdie ahead of him to get to 23 under. And Hostler just birdied 17 to stay in a tie, and he's got to make par on 18 to get into that playoff. And he hooks his drive left, almost OBE, but he's out here on the left side, he's behind a tree. And they got a grandstand down the left side, and he goes to the official and is basically like, I need TIO for this grandstand. And then the official's like, what kind of golf shot are you going to hit? And what he was trying to describe was, I think, like a 60-yard slice with an 8-iron that was going to go around the backside of the tree to this green, but would have hit the grandstand. And the official's like, that's not a golf shot.
Awesome.
And then Hostler was like, I need a second opinion. And the official's just like, I'm not giving you a second opinion. I'm not getting a second opinion. That's not a golf shot. And he got shut down. I think that's when the Twitter storm started to brew because people are like, he can't possibly get relief in this situation. He hit his ball 30 yards off the fairway behind a tree. You can't give guys relief in this case. And so he ends up chipping out to the fairway to 130 yards and hits it to 3 feet and makes the putt.
Yeah, I love to see it though, because there's so many times I feel like, man, some of these TIOs that guys do get, even those are oof, tough to
The
swallow
line
those
of
reviews.
the
Yeah,
line of sight TIO is really hard because it there's so much subjectivity into the shot that someone could reasonably play. And I know these guys can do a lot of different things, and it's the nature of having golf tournaments set up like this. And we can talk all we want about using grandstands as backstops, and that's like an entirely different argument. But the line of sight TIO is to me right now is the more bothersome of these situations. I mean, you had Xander with what, like the cable that was in his line
yep,
of this tower, like that he had to hit through this gap in the trees, and it's like I get it, these are unnatural objects, but just hit the ball. Like nobody was really no, the fans are going to get hurt. Just tell them to squat down a little bit. It's totally fine.
I mean, I don't know why he's saying it's not a golf shot though. I can pull off a 60-yard hook with a slice with a
Yeah.
8 iron.
It needs to come off the hosel for you to do that. But at the same time, too, I just am thinking about this right now. The grandstands are part of the tournament. And so why do we allow people to bank shot them off grandstands behind the green or throw them off the roof to get relief? But then we're going to say, well, it's in my line of play this time. And so therefore I need relief. Like it's either part of the golf course or it's not part of the golf course.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
You
So,
know who?
anyways,
You know
oh
who
yeah.
else we talked about last week? So I didn't check, Mike. Was the sixes six percentage really high?
That's a good question. Let me get back to you on that.
Because somehow in some of my model produced lineups, even though we talked about him at last week a lot, and I wasn't buying what you were putting down, I ended up with a good chunk of Matt Kuchar, uh,
Mm,
who was my only miscut in a lot of lineups.
roughly 15%, 6 of 6.
Hmm. Pretty
Pretty high.
high for an event like this.
Pretty high. Yeah, I agree with a lot of randomness. It's just indicative of DFS being a lot, it's a
Yeah.
lot sharper these days. So sometimes people, I'm like, who's coming up with these 6 of 6 lineups? Yeah, Matt Kuchar, that hurts. I had a handful of landmines I guess the frustrating thing for me is we had in our top plays category, 25% mention share and above, we had 11 players. 8 of them made the cut. So pretty much right on our number, right around 75%, a little bit below that. I had all three of those guys in a lot of in a lot of lineups. It was Kuchar was one of them.
AJ
Sorry,
Spawn.
just JJ Spawn was our top overall play, and then Garrett Higo. And get a little bit more risk with Higo there, but yeah, I had those guys in a big cash contest, and those are the only three guys that we had in our top plays to miss the cut. But it's fall golf. There's a lot of randomness. That's why I do like taking some swings, just because guys like. And I'm not gonna say he's back, but I wasn't even on my radar last week. But Daniel Berger, I wanted so bad this summer to be early on Daniel Berger, and outside of his good finish at the U.S. Open, I couldn't find it. And here he goes, and he finishes solo seventh, -20 this week. So maybe we'll see if we can get Daniel Berger under the radar a little bit when we get back into the swing of things.
I tried that with Harris English in my single entry. That outside of Harris English looked really good. Uh, but he missed the cut at the Pro Court. He missed the cut at Sanderson Farms. I will not be clicking Harris English this week.
Well, let me just give a very quick rundown on the RTG side. Landon Selinsky, DK Network, our top contributor of the week, despite, we get about 50 to 60% of content in this time of year. But Landon Selinsky does roster Ben Griffin. I'm realizing now. Oh, sorry, let me resort here. Um, Landon Selinsky does roster Bo Hostler, Nick Hardy, Ben Griffin. I had a lot of Ben Griffin, a lot of Nick Hardy, not a lot of Bo Hostler. And probably because Bo Hostler was also gutsiest play of the week from Landon Selinsky, meaning he was the solo mention. Um, I feel like, did we have some Bo Hostler talk? I almost want to say that you might have brought his name up. Maybe I'm thinking back to the Procore or something, but I thought his name might have popped at some point.
I had a little bit in my 20 max, so must like he popped up somewhere.
Uh, how about we did get a little bit of chirping from J.Y. Sodi, longtime listener of the pod, taking down a small field RTG listener league contest.
Yeah,
What
good
do
to
what do you
see.
got on, yeah, what do you got on J.Y. Sodi?
Good to see it. I'm, I long time listener, like you said. So it's good to see folks like that go get the dub every now and then. You know, you probably should put forth a good effort this week, Mike. I mean, I might have gotten dead last.
Well, small field, do I go ahead and tout my third place finish?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, a finish is a finish.
A finish is a finish. Buke 0215 rounding out the top three. Anything else on Sanderson Farms? I mean, a golf tournament that I didn't watch, I certainly gambled on, and always happy to see a first time winner. It's. I mean, Kevin Yu has been on the rise. I'll say he's a fun guy to mix into lineups when you need that bomber narrative. The guy who can freaking move it, but fun to see new players get it done this time of year when fields are gettable. It's life changing. 2 year exemption on the PGA Tour, entry into the big tournaments next year, signature events, the Masters, all of that. Like it's life changing for a guy like him. So it's super cool. His parents came out there to do his interview with him. I like the feel good stories.
I as well. Let's go get another first time winner this week, maybe, huh?
Where are we going to get a first time winner?
At the Black Desert Championship.
Black Desert Resort Golf Course in Ivins, Utah. Kyle, take a guess. What part of the state is Ivins, Utah in?
Oh, see, I had to look it up earlier. So I actually have a map in front of me right now. Well, let's like it's good for the listeners, right? So I'm guessing most of these guys are flying into Vegas.
I would think so. And actually, it's funny. I'm a huge fan of the state of Utah. I spend a lot of time in Salt Lake City. My wife works in Salt Lake City quite often. It's my favorite city in North America to go skiing. And but I've never gone south of essentially Provo. So Ivins is basically, I'm not gonna say Las Vegas suburb, but it is as close to Las Vegas as you can get in the state of Utah. Very, very southwest part of Utah.
And very close to Arizona as well.
Very close to Arizona. So just outside of St. George, you got this little community out here near the Snow Canyon State Park. And everyone knows Southern Utah is famous for its national parks and its incredibly scenic landscapes, mesas and rock formations and canyons. And um, I am really excited. I do not know much about this golf course. I know you're going to fill me in. I'm really excited to see a new landscape on TV. And this is how I felt about Castle Pines, even though Castle Pines is a much more iconic location for professional golf. This is what the PGA Tour should be doing at this time of year. Be experimental, but like come to courses like this in underserved parts of the country when it comes to professional golf. Pacific Northwest is another really good one. I do not want to go to run-of-the-mill Myrtle Beach golf courses or other parts of Florida where it just everything looks the same. Like bring us to spots where fans are starved for golf, and fields are going to be willing to travel because these guys they got to play events. They're still going to write a check at the end of the day. So I'm all for this. I hope it's great. I'm sure no one will watch it on TV, but I'm excited to see what it's got to offer.
100%. I will make sure to even record some of it as well, just because I want to see some of those, TV shots, landscapes, as you mentioned. This is the first PGA Tour stop in Utah since 1963. We have a Tom Weiskopf design here, but it really is, I mean, all intents and purposes, we're looking at a resort course. It is at elevation, 3,000 feet. So even though it's going to play just shy of 7,400, the elevation there is gonna make it play probably closer to 7,000. From a comp course standpoint, perhaps this is just lazy with almost desert feel around it, but I feel like I see a lot of PGA West um, potentially in the course. One thing looking at the aerial that I took away too is it's fairly spread out between holes. So I know we talked about this playing in Colorado as well. These guys will be doing some walking at elevation, not near as high as that, but it was one of my takeaways. And then if you look at the aerial, the other thing you'll notice is once you get off the fairway, there's very little rough, and you're kind of in the waste area, like a traditional, desert track. So I think it's going to be more of finding fairways, hit your short irons, hit your wedges into the green, and then make a putt. I would expect, only playing at 7,000 square feet and, more resort courses, I would expect it to be fairly low scoring. But bit of a birdie fest. There is 44 bunkers out there as far as defense. There is two water hazards in play. One of them just down the whole left side of a fairway, and the other one kind of tucked along the green, but I don't think they're gonna turn into a huge piece of it. And we got bent grass fairways and greens, Mike. So I'm excited overall, as you said, a lot of the reasons you highlighted, and it's just going to be something different on our TV screens from a golf perspective. So I'm intrigued. I'll be tuning in and much more than I have the last 2 weeks.
Looking through some photos, it might be impossible to miss a fairway out here.
They're
They
that
look
wide.
enormous. They look enormous. This makes me think of what was the course that they played down in Mexico? Tiger Woods, El Cardinal,
Yeah.
just a massive Mexico resort course where I mean, there was definitely some hazards, but there was really no reason to miss a fairway. I'm getting some of that, but really some cool features. I mean, some water features. Doesn't look like a ton of change of elevation on the golf course, although the course itself is at elevation. And then you got this really cool, like, whatever this is. Is it vegetation? Is it sand? It looks like it's black rock throughout the desert in the space where I'm sure the resort gets its name. So it's just a really unique property.
I'm curious too, because I did measure out some of them. There is the grouping. It almost looks closest to the driving range. There, is that what you're looking at, Mike? Like those four holes. They
Yep.
look wide, but when you get down to the ones to the, like, I guess on the southern edge, they're not quite as wide. So I don't know. You have a little bit of this going into a new course. I think the fairway should be fairly easy to hit, but I don't want to get off into that black stuff.
Well, does anybody have any idea what it takes to get it done at Black Desert?
I would say there, at least so far, seems to be quite a bit of a consensus around what type of folks we want to look at this week. Seamus Power is leading the way so far. He is one of our gentlemen over 10,000 at 10.3, 54% mention share, and the MPI loves him. Andy Lack, just to highlight one of them, was on Seamus, who had a pretty decent showing so far this fall. Andrew Novak is right behind him, along with Doug Gim and Patrick Fishburne at 45%. Fishburne being a BYU guy himself, so I think he's getting a little love for the Utah golf there. And then we have a gaggle of guys at 36%. I'll just run through some of them. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more, but Chan Kim, Chris Kirk, Keith Mitchell, and Kurt Kitayama, and Ryan Fox.
This is probably, I guess I'm seeing I'm seeing a lot of the, I'm going to say chalk, but I'm seeing a lot of the higher price players float to the top here. I guess maybe that's not surprising at an unfamiliar golf course. It's just, we only know so much, so we're probably going to just stick with guys with recent form and track records of success. I don't, where did Seamus Power end up last week?
While you're
I
looking
guess he
that up,
finished T11.
yeah. And how the profile look while you got that there.
Well, I was just looking at the standings of last
Uh,
week's, but Sheamus, I mean, Sheamus gained across the board. Sheamus, I mean, we talked about this last week. Like he's
mm,
been on a good run. He hasn't missed a cut since the U.S. Open, which says something. He's got 4 top 20s in that stretch, including this T11 last week. Um, but solid all around, playing a little bit of length. So I don't know. I mean, I got to imagine that most of these guys, if we were to kind of work our way through this, we're looking at guys with pretty solid form.
yeah, so let's just talk about one of those guys, Keith Mitchell, who we talked about a lot about last week. Already mentioned it earlier on the show. He is 10-6 this week, the most expensive golfer on the board. Yes, he finished T3 last week. And the crazy thing about that is he did not do it off the tee. He only gained 0.6 strokes off the tee and gained 5.6 with the putter, which is not very Keith Mitchell like, right? So I was curious. He's been on a pretty good run here. He was 12th at the Pro Tour. He was T12 at the Wyndham, back in August, but just playing once a month there. But I was like, what's the last time Keith Mitchell had a top 10? And what did he do right afterwards? Well, he was top 10 at the RBC Canadian Open next week. At his next time out, I guess a couple weeks later, he missed the cut at the Rocket Mortgage. And one thing I'd like to highlight there too is at the RBC, he had a pretty good putting week as far as Keith's concerned. Uh, Previous to that, the other top 10 he had last year in the 2024 calendar year, it was at the Cognizant Classic PGA National. He finished T9th there, had a positive putting week. The next time out was at the Players. He finished 73rd and lost horrifically on the greens. So I guess I don't have a lot of faith in Keith this week, especially when you're looking at a guy that's 140th on tour and putting inside 10 feet, 139th, 10 to 15 feet. And I expect it to be a birdie fest. You're going to need to make putts in that range. You're going to need to make those, 10 foot for birdie, 15 foot for birdie to have a solid chance this week. And when you're the most expensive guy on the board, I look to go away from Keith. I guess if I was trying to maybe make an argument, is you could say, hey, these last 3 times out, he's gained with the putter. He found something there. So if you're gonna try to find a way to make that click, I think that has to be what you're banking on. But I'm fading Mr. Mitchell.
I think his finish last week is going to what was he was 8 to 10% owned in most contests last week. I think his finish last week is going to at least double that. There's going to be you're not really paying much more for him, and the casual players are going to look at Keith Mitchell and say, well, great, he's playing great. Therefore, I don't even have to work hard to roster him at 10-6, and I'm going to continue to ride Keith Mitchell. And I agree with you. You're looking past that first layer, and you're saying Keith Keith Mitchell did this all on the greens. This can't continue. The last time that he gained 5 strokes putting, well, in this case 4 strokes putting, take that back. He only gained 3 strokes putting and a missed cut in 36 holes at the Farmers Insurance Open. It's the only stretch he's had this year in which he gained strokes putting in 3 consecutive events. He finished T9 at the American Express, but gaining only 2 strokes on the greens. Keith Mitchell does not have weeks where he's gaining 5 strokes on the green. I even want to click back into 2023. I think we're going to rarely see this as well. He gained at the 2023 U.S. Open, finished T20. He gained 5 strokes on the green there. Again, an anomaly on the season. I guess my point is that I cannot, the way that Keith Mitchell is going to have another top 5 week is he has to probably gain 4 to 5 strokes in a birdie fest, like you said. He's going to have to gain 4 to 5 strokes on the greens. It ain't happening back-to-back weeks, especially on a golf course that I mean, nobody's played it, but there's just no reason for him to putt that well coming back here.
So at the top of the board, if I am going to be spending money somewhere, and I think the top is just interesting this week. Yes, we've talked about Seamus Power. Uh, Makes a lot of sense, Mike. I think especially, cash style contest, heck yeah, or when you're not as concerned about ownership, because I do think he'll draw some. I think some folks will go to Fishburne, as like we talked about. But if you're looking to get different, and you have to have a little bit of a leap of faith, I think, to go with this guy, but it's Chris Kirk at 9,800. Our MPI likes him so far, 79. Ulrich is on him. Matt Gannon highlighted him. He's not someone that we've seen play since the Tour Championship, where he finished T27 at the East Lake. He did finish T9 at Castle Pines. So if you want to try to draw some correlation, perhaps there to more West Coast style golf, where he got a little bit of bump off the tee from Carey, because since he's not a long guy, uh, but he was not great on approach and still was able to finish T9. But I'm looking at it more as, he's shown the ability to, have two bad approach weeks, three bad approach weeks, and then all of a sudden pop and put up a nice finish. So I'm looking for that. We saw him go out and win a Birdie Fest last year. That, of course, won us some money at the Century, down in Kapalua. So I think if you're looking for a pivot option, Chris Kirk can make some sense. I'm not going there in cash, or any of my safe lineups, if you will. But when I'm trying to find something a little different top of the board that I don't think people would be going on, Chris Kirk 9,800.
Trying to see who we got as who's gonna win in a birdie fest. We got, or I mean, who's gonna play well? We gotta have guys that have birdie or high birdie or better percentage, and usually strong putters will say inside of 10 feet. You gotta, like you said, gotta convert inside of 10 feet, 10 to 15 feet. Um, Keith Mitchell coming out at fifth in the field in birdie or better, which I find a little surprising. When we comes to our putting, Alexander Bjork, I know we've put him in there first in the field, putting inside of 10 feet. Patrick Fishburne, third in the field. Jacob Bridgman got a lot of steam last week. Bo Hostler. And then as we move out a little bit, I'm surprised. Ryan Fox, 10 to 15 feet. He's first in the field. He could be a fun play this week. I know he's got a little bit of love in the bottle here. 36%. Jeff Ulrich, Hans Gievers, Al Hunter. Ryan Fox is a fun mix. Like if he is putting that well from inside of 15 feet, but you also mix in the distance. I mean, this looks like a golf course where you could just really let it rip off the tee. And I know that to some extent that neutralizes length a little bit because everybody can swing hard. But I don't know. Ryan Fox might be kind of fun.
I'm intrigued by some Ryan Fox. If you're someone else to throw out, this is not a guy that is real hot with the putter, but he has shown the weeks to pop, and the rest of his game has been in a pretty good spot overall. But is Chan Kim. 8,900 this week is a little higher than I would like to pay for Chan Kim typically, but he is getting 36% mention share. Lynn Hochberg and John Hasselbauer both highlighted him. Looking at what Chan Kim's been up to, it's T12, T10, T29, cut at the 3M, T12, T26, T33, which is a pretty consistent run for him. He's been great off the tee. He's been mostly good on approach, but he did lose 4 strokes on approach last week and still came up with a T33 finish. Kind of scrambled his butt off is what it looks like, but he was neutral on the putting surface. So when you just look back at those weeks, and he has shown the ability to all of a sudden, make some putts, like at the John Deere Classic T12 when he gained 2.7 on the green. So a little bit more than I would like to pay for Chan Kim, but at 89, maybe if he's your second guy in and you're going more of a balanced build after that, I think he could make some sense.
How do you feel about? I'm going to keep on just throwing out some random names here, and then we'll bring it all back together with some hot takes on actual builds. How do you feel about players that have been making hay on Corn Ferry, like a Matthew McCarty, that has been cleaning up? And last week he comes into the Sanderson Farms at $8,800, finishes I think 63rd, makes the cut, backs up on the weekend. clocks in at 8,000 in a similar strength field. Do you like paying eights, high eights for guys that are ripping it up on KFT, but then come to the PGA Tour and we're expecting them just to be superstars?
I looked at the play last week. I didn't go there. No, he got some steam. Um, in general, we're looking for form, and is this field really that much different than some of the Corn Ferry events we saw last year? And
No.
especially when it's at a course none of the PGA guys have played before. So no, I don't have a problem with it.
The and this is, I mean, this is why I think, I mean, we Corn Ferry Golf is all about making birdies. And as you've seen, the Corn Ferry Tour is willing to put guys on a 6,300-yard golf course at elevation and let them shoot multiple rounds in the 50s. Like, that tour is about making about making birdies. And I think that's the real hard realization of these journeyman tour pros, in that in order to make a dime on the KFT, you got to go out and shoot 66 minimum on any golf course on any given day for 4 rounds. And that mentality, I think, just breeds players that can show up on slightly harder golf courses and still say, I got to shoot 65, 66. And so I think that's why we've seen a bunch of these guys, even Scotty Scheffler for that matter, who just jump onto the scene, have no problem making birdies on tour. I don't want to be part of the 15% Matthew McCarty ownership. Like, I'm fine paying $8,000, but I don't want anyone else playing him.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, if you are going to play someone that's going to garner some ownership, maybe another guy that I don't think will much. But what do you think about Harry Hall, Mike? I guess he is getting 27% for so far. Again, another guy in the eights, which I think we're picking up a theme here that, maybe those 8Ks are going to be popular. People are going to stick them in. He has been playing over in Europe. He went T12 cut at the Irish Open and then T18 at the BMW at Wentworth. So in pretty decent form. He won on tour last year. If you don't recall, he won an alt field event at Keen Trace for the ESCO Championship, which, heck, I mean, this is a pretty similar field strength probably to what we looked at in ISCO. And over on tour, outside of him missing the cut at the Wyndham, I mean, T24, T12, T31, T42. So he'd been pretty solid, a guy that has shown the ability to make some putts, can be good on approach. Off the tee is not his game, but if we are saying most guys are going to be able to hit fairways and you don't need to be long, I think I can make a great argument for Harry Hall being an interesting clip.
He has gained on the greens in 9 straight rounds, which is really fascinating. Like, with as much as we know about putting and its volatility, and I know we want to find pop putters, I'm always fascinated by somebody like Harry Hall or Denny McCarthy has the same stat profile where they gain on the greens every week. It doesn't matter the type of surface, it doesn't matter the golf course. They know how to get the ball in the hole. And just looking really quick, Harry Hall, he's 65th in strokes gained putting this year, which I think is lower than I expected to see for someone that's been that consistent. But a few other names in the field this week: Justin Suh, Jacob Bridgman. I don't know if I saw Max Grazerman in the field this week, Bo Hostler. Those guys are all in the top 12 putting on the PGA Tour this year. So a couple of good options. But yeah, Harry Hall, again, I think you're going to see a Corn Ferry Tour type player play well this week. And you can put Kevin Yu in that category last week. This is what happens on Birdie Fest golf courses, especially ones that have limited track records. So do you want to run through a quick build? Do you want to kind of see what we can do to make sense of kind of what we've talked about here? I mean, I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna go ahead and click in. We used to do this. We just go back and forth and say, what do we end up with? But I'm gonna go ahead and lock in Seamus Power. I'm gonna assume both the form, the mentioned power that we are, the power index that we're showing right now. I'm gonna play Seamus Power over Keith Mitchell.
Okay, well, I'll go downboard. If we're looking for a Corn Ferry guy that people might be interested in, but not one that's maybe going to garner as much ownership as some of the others we've talked about, how about Max McGreevy? Uh, his finished the Corn Ferry season from August 18th on. So over the last 6 weeks, win T52, T3, T23, T7.
Sounds pretty good to me.
$7,500. Max McGreevy.
Is it? I mean, we're going to be hard pressed to find 6Ks in this field. I think that's digging too deep. And so I do think if you're playing Seamus Power up top, you're probably looking at maybe, I mean, if you could stomach skipping the 9Ks, which if you're gonna play a 10K, I don't know that you got to go 9K unless there's someone that you really, really like. Um, I think you could probably load up on the 7Ks and just hopefully we hit 3 or 4 of the right ones out of the 5 maybe we put in this lineup. Is it Chandler Phillips time?
I mean,
Is it
Chandler
Chandler
Phillips getting a little love. Sell me on it, Mike.
I'll sell you on it. Sanderson Farms T33 Pro Core T13 didn't play the FedEx Cup playoffs, but did finish T38 at the Wyndham. Gained gained over 6 strokes, almost 7 strokes on the green as finish at the Pro Core. I like him riding a hot putter. Doesn't hit it long, but if we can we know we've talked him up at the beginning of the year. We know Chandler Phillips can have a 10-stroke week on approach. Hasn't happened in a while, but I don't know. 7,600, we could do worse.
Nag. Well, I'll
Who else
stick
you
in
like?
the I'll stick in the 10Ks and give you some money to spend.
You mean the
Uh,
7Ks?
there's 7Ks and give you some money to spend at the top. Is what I meant to say. Ben Coles, 7,300. He finished 16th last week at Sanderson Farms. Has not missed a cut, and well, I guess he missed one at the Wyndham, but otherwise he is on a pretty good overall stretch. Not a lot of real high-end finishes, but 16th, 24th, 46th, 20th in there for 7,300. And again, a guy that showed a lot of success last year on the Corn Ferry Tour before he got up to the big leagues. He was really dominating over there for a stretch. So 7,300, and we like rooting for Ben.
So at this point here, when you're looking at, you got $17,000, $17,300 left to spend. You could easily play 2 guys in the 8Ks. I think there's a couple that I could throw out. I do think that's going to be a heavily owned segment of the field this week. So what do you want to do? Do you want to find one more flyer? It really depends on the type of tournament that we're looking at here. But I'm seeing something. I'm seeing again, you want to go back to these Corn Ferry Tour players that are showing up here. A $6,100 Chandler Blanchette. He did miss the cut at the Nationwide Children's Hospital, but the dude makes a lot of cuts on Corn Ferry, and we got somebody here. I don't think we got anybody mentioning Chandler Blanchette yet. Is that too weird for you?
That's a little weird for me. A little weird.
Okay.
I mean, what would that allow you to get up to?
I mean, you could then go take anybody else in the field. You could go
Sure.
take, if you want to go shove in Keith Mitchell, you want to play Kurt Kitayama, you want to go back to Bo Hostler. I mean, but I don't love the 10Ks, and so I'd rather try to hand pick the right 8K player here. And I'm looking at guys like even like a Michael Thorbjornsen could be a nice play here. Don't have great comps on him. He had a decent week last week, I want to say. He
See
finished T8 at the Sanderson Farms, had a great day on the greens, missed a few cuts down the stretch, but God, he was so good at right before he turned pro, and then he just hasn't quite done it. But the guy can hit it a ton, and he's going to be great.
I like going that route, and as opposed like the other one I was looking at, getting a little bit of mention so far in the 6K is a guy that I try to play all the time and it never works. Is Hisatsun.
Missed the cut of the number last week. I almost grabbed him in a few contests, and I'm like, oh, I got to play him when we're not talking about him, and it would have backfired.
Yeah, so he had the T3 at Wyndham out of nowhere, but before that, Genesis Scottish Open cut T3, cut. T77, cut. And 3 of those cuts were in Europe. So as opposed to try to get, you know, cute with somebody like that at 69 that allows us to go back up and we're not necessarily enthralled with back up, I like your take on old Mikey Thor.
And so that leaves you with $8,500. Again, you're being asked to pick somebody in the low eights, high sevens. I have
Harry
a couple
Hall.
thoughts. You could go Harry Hall.
Or Andrew Novak if you want to sell me on that.
I mean, Andrew Novak coming right now in second position in our model, 45% mention share, 54 on the power index. I don't think we've seen him. When was the last time we saw him? He played Sanderson Farms, finished T23. Andrew Novak hasn't missed a cut since the Chuck Schwab back in May. So God, he's been solid. I think he's probably going to come with some ownership at $8,100. The other thought I had was a guy like Justin Lauer who can easily, fill it up on the greens. But I would come back and check this. Do we have enough pivots? Because Andrew Novak feels like a super safe play this week.
We're skipping the 9s. We're staying out of the 6s. We have 3 7s, 2 8s. But we're leaving $400 on the table. Coles, McGreevy, Phillips, those combo, I don't think folks are really going to get there. I think we got enough.
Good. Lock it in. Parting thoughts for the Black Desert?
Let's watch some golf on TV. And I'm ready to play some golf Friday. Wish me luck, everyone.
I'm really excited for you. When will I get updates at the turn between 18s? Like, what are you going to tell me as soon as your kind of new little move is clicking? You're going to say, I got it.
No, I got a lot of golf left, so I won't want to jinx anything. I'll give you a little bit of, I'll drop a line at the end of the first 18. And then on the second 18, you'll probably know a little bit more real time. And there might be beverages flowing by then too. So,
well, best of luck. I hope it goes great. And if we're lucky and the golf season is long, maybe even you and I have a little more golf left than us too.
I love it. Need to get a couple more in, especially if it stays nice.
Of course. All right. Well, that's our Black Desert Championship preview. You can find Reading the Green content on Twitter at RTG Podcast DFS, YouTube channel Reading the Green, and any major podcast platform. We'll be back in a week with the results of the Black Desert Championship and preview the Shriners Open. See ya.
You nerded out hardcore on that one.